Welcome back, everybody. Ready to dive even deeper into Tkinter Treeview.
Deeper.
Oh, yeah. Last time we got to build that cool table, to display data. And we even figured out how to, add new entries straight from, user input, straight into a MySQL database.
Right.
If you missed it, definitely check out the last episode. The link is down in the description below. But today, we are tackling something even more powerful and potentially a little bit nerve-wracking.
Okay.
Deleting records.
That's right. Yeah, deleting data, it's a big deal. It's like the ultimate undo button. And, with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. One wrong click and poof, important information vanishes.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure we're deleting these records safely and responsibly, especially when we're dealing with something like a database?
Well, the source material here points us to a really useful tool called Squalchemy.
Squalchemy.
Yeah, it's a Python library. It acts as a kind of intelligent middleman between our code and the database.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Why is Squalchemy so important, especially when we're talking about something as sensitive as deleting data?
Well, think of it this way. When you delete a record, right, you're sending an instruction to the database in the form of a SQL query.
Okay.
Now, if you're not careful about how you write these instructions, you could leave your database vulnerable to something called an SQL injection attack.
SQL injection attack. That sounds kind of ominous. What is that exactly?
Okay, so imagine someone sneaking malicious code into those database instructions.
Oh.
Right. It's like leaving a back door wide open to your house.
Okay.
A hacker could exploit that vulnerability to steal data, corrupt your database, or even take control of your entire system.
That's scary.
That's where Squalchemy comes in. It helps us write these instructions in a safer way using something called parameterized queries.
Parameterized query?
Yeah.
So is that like using specific predefined slots for the information we want to delete so that nothing unexpected slips in?
Exactly, you got it. Instead of directly embedding the data into the query, we use placeholders. It's like filling out a form with blanks, and Squalchemy securely fills in the blanks with the right information.
Okay.
This separation of data and commands makes it really difficult for malicious code to sneak through.
So Squalchemy is like a security guard for our database.
Yeah.
Making sure only the right instructions get through. That makes me feel a lot better about this whole deleting process.
It should. And it's not just about security. Squalchemy makes our code much cleaner, easier to read, and it's more efficient when interacting with the database.
So it's a win-win all around.
Yeah.
Safer, more readable, and more efficient code. Sign me up.
Absolutely.
But okay, let's get back to the actual task at hand here. Let's say we have our tree view set up. It's displaying our student data, just like in our example code. And we need to remove a specific student's record. Where do we even begin?
First, we need to pinpoint the exact record we want to delete in the tree view. Tkinter gives us some really handy tools to grab the unique ID of a selected row. You'll see this in the code where they use trv.selection0 to get that ID.
Okay.
It's like having a laser pointer that highlights the exact record we're targeting.
Okay, so we've got our target locked. Time to hit delete check.
Not so fast.
Oh.
This is where those parameterized queries that we were talking about come into play.
Okay.
Squalchemy helps us write a delete query that includes special placeholders for the data. You can see this in the code.
Yeah.
Query delete from student where is .deleted. The deleted is our placeholder and ensures that we're only deleting the specific record that we identified earlier.
Gotcha.
No accidental mass deletions here.
Okay, good. I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together. We find the row.
Yep.
We craft a secure query using Squalchemy's placeholders.
Right.
And then hit execute. Boom, record gone from the database.
Almost. We're dealing with both the database and the tree view. So after confirming the database deletion, we also need to remove the row visually from the tree view.
Okay.
Luckily, Tkinter makes this easy with the command trv.delete. Selected item. Poof, it disappears from the user's view.
It's like magic. But with code, speaking of the user, I noticed that the source code also uses those pop-up message boxes.
Right.
What's their role in all of this?
Those message boxes are all about user experience and preventing those accidental deletions. You always want to confirm the user's intention before making such a permanent change.
Right.
Imagine if you accidentally hit the delete button without a warning. Disaster.
Yeah.
The code uses messagebox.acacio.ses.asciishno, which basically pops up a window saying, are you sure you want to delete this record?
Yeah.
Simple but essential.
It's like that "are you sure" prompt you get when permanently deleting a file. A little sanity check
Exactly.
can save you a lot of headaches.
Yeah, we want to empower users to manage their data,
Right.
but we also want to protect them from those oh no moments.
Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all of these precautions, what if something still goes wrong? Like, what happens if there's an unexpected error during that deletion process?
That's where error handling swoops in to save the day.
Okay.
Our source material shows us how to do this by using something called a try-except block.
Try except.
It's like setting up a safety net for our code. If something goes wrong during the deletion, the try-except block catches the error and allows us to handle it gracefully.
Gracefully.
Yeah.
So instead of the application crashing and burning it,
Yeah.
it can display like a helpful message explaining what went wrong.
You got it. It's all about anticipating potential issues and making sure our application remains stable and informative even when faced with unexpected hiccups. It's like having a backup generator for your house.
Okay.
In case of a power outage, you're prepared for the unexpected.
I like that.
Yeah.
Being prepared. So we've covered squalchemy
Yeah.
for security and readability.
Mhm.
The Tkinter commands to delete that record. And even those "are you sure" pop-ups to prevent accidentally losing data.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like we've assembled a whole toolkit for responsible data deletion.
I like that analogy. And it highlights a really important point. These techniques, they're not just for deleting records.
Right.
They're valuable for almost any interaction with a database.
Okay.
Whether we're adding new data,
Mhm.
updating existing records, or even querying information, those principles of security, user-friendliness, and robustness, they apply across the board.
So it's not just about the code itself,
Yeah.
but about developing the right mindset when you're working with databases. Like, we need to think about the potential consequences of our actions
Right.
and build safeguards to prevent accidental damage
Yeah.
or security vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
It's almost like a philosophical approach to coding.
I couldn't have put it better myself. And you know what's really fascinating here?
What?
When we combine this dilution functionality with what we learned in the previous episode about adding records, we really start to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about isolated actions anymore. We're talking about building a complete system for managing data, adding viewing, updating, and yes, deleting, all while making sure that data is correct and secure.
It's like we're building a virtual world where data can be created, manipulated, and even eradicated.
Right.
It's a lot of power, but it's clear that wielding it responsibly is key.
Precisely. And speaking of wielding power responsibly, there's another layer here that's often overlooked.
What's that?
We've focused a lot on the technical aspects of deleting data, but what about the human element,
Okay.
the user at the other end of the application?
That's a great point. We can build all the safeguards in the world, but ultimately it's the user who interacts with the system
Yeah.
and makes decisions. How do we ensure that they're equipped to make informed choices, especially when it comes to something as irreversible as deleting data?
This is where user interface design and user experience come into play. It's about providing clear and concise instructions, intuitive workflows, and appropriate feedback mechanisms. Think about those confirmation dialogues.
Right.
They're not just about preventing accidental clicks. They're about giving the user a moment to pause, reflect, and confirm their intention.
So it's about designing systems that guide the user, almost like a gentle hand on their shoulder,
Yeah.
making sure they understand the consequences of their actions and feel empowered to make informed decisions.
Exactly. It's about striking that balance between functionality and user-friendliness, ensuring that the power that we're giving users is accompanied by the knowledge and the guidance that they need to wield it responsibly.
That's a powerful message. And it really elevates this whole conversation beyond just the technical details of the code. We're talking about building systems that respect the user, protect their data, and empower them to make informed choices. It's almost like a social responsibility that we have as developers.
I completely agree. And, thinking back to the library example that you mentioned, this becomes even more relevant. Imagine a librarian accidentally deleting a record for, like, a rare, irreplaceable book. The consequences could be significant.
Yeah. It makes you realize that every line of code that we write has the potential to impact the real world in profound ways.
Absolutely.
And with that realization comes a sense of responsibility to do things right.
Yeah.
To build systems that are not just functional, but ethical and user-centric.
Well said. And, this brings up a whole other aspect of software development that we could dive into. Testing and quality assurance.
Okay.
How do we make sure that our deletion functionality works as intended?
Right.
Not just in ideal scenarios, but also when things go wrong?
Okay.
How do we simulate user errors, unexpected inputs, and even malicious attacks to make sure that our system holds up?
Oh, that sounds like a deep dive for another episode.
Maybe.
But for now, I think we've covered a lot of ground when it comes to deleting records from our Tkinter Treeview and MySQL database. We talked about the importance of SQL alchemy for security and readability, how to pinpoint the record that we want to delete, the crucial role of confirmation dialogues, and even the need for robust error handling.
We also touched upon the human element of data deletion.
Right.
The importance of user experience and the ethical considerations that come with building systems that handle sensitive information.
It's been a fascinating journey, and I'm sure our listeners are already thinking about how they can apply these concepts to their own projects. But before we wrap up, is there anything else that you think we should highlight? Any final words of wisdom for our data-wielding audience?
I think the key takeaway here is that deleting data is not a trivial action.
Yeah.
It requires careful consideration, thoughtful planning, and a commitment to building systems that are both powerful and responsible.
And never underestimate the power of a good "are you sure" message.
Absolutely. A simple confirmation can go a long way in preventing those heart-stopping moments of accidental data loss.
Wow. It's amazing how something like deleting a record, something so simple, can lead to such a deep and multifaceted discussion. We've gone from like the very nitty-gritty of SQL queries to like these big, huge ideas of data management and user experience.
Yeah, it really shows how all these different aspects of software development are connected.
Yeah, it's like we zoomed out from a single line of code to see the entire ecosystem.
Right.
And that's one of the most valuable things about doing these deep dives.
Absolutely.
We're not just learning about how to write the code, but how to think critically about the impact of our code on users, on data, even on society as a whole.
Right. It's like that saying, think globally, act locally.
Yeah. We're writing code at a local level, but those decisions can have global implications. And I think that's a responsibility that we shouldn't take lightly.
Absolutely. And, if we connect this back to our previous episode where we learned how to add records to the database, you can really see the full picture emerging. We're not just talking about isolated actions anymore. We're talking about creating a complete system where users can interact with data in a meaningful and responsible way. They can add new information, view existing records, update details, and yes, even delete records when necessary, all within a framework that prioritizes security, integrity, and user experience.
It's like we built a virtual world for data with rules and safeguards in place to make sure everything runs smoothly and everyone plays fair. And as developers, we get to be the architects, designing the structures, defining those interactions, and ultimately shaping the way that users experience and manage their data.
That's a really powerful way to think about it. And it really underscores the importance of approaching software development with a holistic mindset. We can't just focus on the technical details alone. We need to consider the broader context, the human element, and the ethical implications of the systems that we build.
So to all our listeners out there, whether you're building these complex database applications or just starting out, remember this. Every line of code you write has the potential to make a difference.
That's right.
Use that power wisely. Build responsibly and always prioritize the security and well-being of your users.
And never stop learning, exploring, and challenging yourself to create software that not only works, but make a positive impact on the world.
That's a great note to end on. Until next time, happy coding, everyone.